Welcome back to Adventure Bike TV's Under the Visor. This time we're doing it a bit differently, as we're still under coronavirus lockdown. So we're having a chat using our good old friend video conferencing. And speaking of good friends, today I'm chatting with a good friend of Adventure Bike TV, Graham Field. Graham's already written several fantastic travel books, and he's just finished his most recent one. It's called Nirvana. But that wasn't the only thing we talked about.
Good morning, Graham. How you doing?
I'm very good. I was very good. I was just telling Michelle, actually, I said, do you remember Graham Field with the long hair? She went, I remember Graham. So I'm just about to have a chat with him. I haven't spoken to him for ages. She did. I can't remember where she's met you. Must be one of the travel events somewhere. But
Probably.
Remember. I think your where you're talking to me from is much more motorbike and adventure oriented than my office.
Well, I recorded Raw this morning. I do their podcast once a month, and that starts at 7 o'clock in the morning for me. And I like to do it in the shed, especially when there's someone in the house, because I've got the headphones on, and I'm just self-aware when there's someone hearing one half of a conversation. So I like to come to the shed. It feels like my recording studio, and I've got a stunning view as well. So the computer was out here, and I thought, well, we'll keep it for the Zoom chat.
And is that your bike that you did the donut on?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah. The donut's still there. A year and a half later.
Pride of place.
It's my first ever donut. I even watched YouTube videos on how to do it. The tyre was old. I thought they're bloody expensive tyres. I'm going to do my first ever donut. And I had the traction control on first. And then once I turned that off, and my girlfriend was there with her little girl who was about 5 at the time. And I smoked it, just smoked it. And it went pretty well. And then the last bit she videoed instead of taking photographs. And they're covered in smoke. And it was a misty October day as well. So the smoke kind of blended with the atmosphere. And I got CCTV, and later on I watched it on CCTV, and it's just brilliant. I mean, the elation when I did it without dropping it. And a little girl, Rados, is like following me around like a puppy dog, looking at the burnt out tyre and everything, trying to work out, why is this cold? Why is he fucking up a 10 grand bike?
Because I can.
Because I've always wanted to.
So how's your Bulgarian coming along?
Oh, I've got this huge arsenal of words, which I've been learning for 5 years. But the Slavic language is all gender-driven. So you've got to get your genders right, your tenses right, your plurals right. And so there are so many prefixes and suffixes, mainly suffixes, to a word that a recognizable word, when it's in the right context, becomes unrecognizable to me because there's all these bits on the end. Right. So I talk in this sort of one tense, one gender, singular way, and I can usually get my point across. The problem is I can't understand what they're saying back to me because they say correctly. And, you know, there are some people who just can't learn languages. And my motivation is to not be another immigrant who can't speak the language. But I'm trying really hard, but bloody hell, it's difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think, are you naturally a language person?
No, absolutely not.
I'm exactly the same. I think even if you're naturally a language person who picks up languages well, I think the Slavic languages are, as you described, are particularly complicated. And I'm not. I mean, I studied French and German at school, and I can kind of vaguely make myself understood anywhere that speaks French, but only just.
My girlfriend is multilingual: Hindi, German, Russian, Bulgarian, English. She proofreads my stuff. Her English is that good. Wow. And and she can't really comprehend how I can be such an idiot when it comes to languages. But I can, can't I?
Well, proofreading leads me very nicely into, obviously I want to talk to you about your new book, and then we'll talk about other stuff as well. So there's been quite a break, hasn't there, between the last book and this one? So what So what got you writing again?
Wow. It's funny because I came here, and when I to Bulgaria, and the house was kind of a blank canvas. And I was slowly doing it up. On one of the rooms, this was going to be my writing room. It's got this countertop. It looks out, got a beautiful view over the mountains. That was where I was going to sit and write the next book. But in actual fact, in 5 years here, it'll be 5 years next month, I've just been having too much fun. I've either been sitting at the house, socialising, riding the roads, doing little trips, and I just haven't done it. And actually, and I'm not sucking your dick here, but it was writing for Adventure Bike TV, doing the columns, that got me writing again. And I really enjoyed it, and thought, I can do this. You know, it's wonderful when you you've got a topic in mind, and then this little bit of inspiration hits the page. And so, and of course, this all I've been asked for the last 5 years: when's the next book? When's the next book? When's the next book? And I didn't even quite know what direction it was going to take. But because I've kept a diary all my life, you know, everything's documented. And I thought, right, let's start with a Horizons Unlimited trip to Ireland, which then I went down to Bulgaria to do another talk. That's when I saw this house. And I'm not going to tell anyone I'm writing a book. Let's just see if it works. And my way of writing books has always been, I'm immersed in it. It's 12, 16-hour days. If I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with an idea, I'll write until 5, doze for an hour. And this time, the book starts in 2015. I was convinced I was heading for my 50th birthday. I was convinced it was autumn. And then I'd look out and there were daffodils. It really messes with your head. So I immersed myself. And I started it, I think it was the 30th of January. And it went all right. And it was building momentum. I got to the 50,000 word mark. And I thought, well, now I think it's going to be something. And I knew roughly where I wanted to end it. But at the rate I was doing it, that was going to be a 200,000 word book. That's a fat book. People are daunted, they won't pick it up. And if they do, they'll see the cover price and they certainly won't buy it. So I thought, okay, well, I can end it further closer. So it covers the first 3 months of moving here. But it isn't just, it's about relocation. It's about the motorcycle rides that I took to come down here because I still had show obligations in the UK. So I was commuting, basically.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember watching on Facebook the rides.
When I saw you at the hub, you know, I was living in Bulgaria, but doing that. So, so basically, it's about having the courage to move to a country where you don't know. You become illiterate. You don't know the language. You can't read the alphabet, and also all those little tests, all those challenges that you kind of take for granted in your own country. It's about making the transition, but it's also about, you know, when we travel, exactly why do we travel? And for me, it was always searching for contentment. I mean, that was the theme of the first books. And then when you actually find what you're looking for, are you going to recognize it? And I sort of did. Bulgaria just felt right and made the move. So anyway, the point is, it reached this crescendo, and I got to, the book's about 110,000 words long, which is an average size for a book. Different Natures, my last book's about the same size as that. And so there is this euphoria when you get to the last sentence, when you write that last sentence. I've done it. I just read my full book, you know. And then you go through the copy editing, and you go through the proofreading, and you go to deal with the graphics and the cover and the blurb and the synopsis and the ISBN numbers, and then it's just miserable. It's just work. And then by the time everybody's had a go and you've read all through it, and then it's ready for proof, and you read all through it again, you are sick to bloody death of it. But as of last week, it went to press, and it should be out physically next week. And then that's kind of the last euphoria along the process, is when you hold that physical book in your hand. Like, this is it. This is my full book. And which is immediately followed by, oh God, now I've got to sell them.
Yeah. So I'm interested, as an avid book reader myself, and I was having a discussion with friends last week, as we're now allowed to see some friends for a few hours in the garden, about the difference between, you know, reading a paper book and a Kindle. And so, and I still love both for different reasons, and I actually even read on my phone because it's convenient sometimes. But so do you? How are you finding kind of what people read has changed over the years? You know, paper versus Kindle versus audio book, which I want to talk to you about as well. But
right, Well, I'm kind of stuck in my paper book thing. I don't have a Kindle, and I never have. And I know that the light is different reading on a Kindle than reading on a computer. But for me, coming from the days of dial-up connections and paying by the minute, I don't like reading on a screen because it's costing me. I'm going to speed reading to get to that. And the EPUB version of the book was just sent to me yesterday, and I had to check it all. And I just don't like reading on a screen. So I cater for the people who have Kindles. I appreciate that it must be wonderful to carry 1,000 books in something that's as thin as a piece of slate. But for me, particularly with travel books, I think you want to go back to the map. You want to go forward to the photos. And you can do that with a physical book. I think
much easier.
It's more a complete package. If you're reading some chick lit or fiction or something, it's probably fine on a Kindle. But travel books for me, and I've got a pretty good library of travel books, and they are all the physical book. I like looking at the spines, much like we used to look at the spines of our albums. You know, it's something that to me is a precious thing. A book you buy, you generally keep it forever, and so I want that physical thing. So yes, I do cater for the Kindle people. You'd have to, and I mean there are pluses to it from my point of view. I'm not holding stock. I'm not paying for stock. The price is minimal, the money you get back is minimal, but it's cost me nothing to get lose, nothing to get damaged, nothing to get stolen. Well, for people, Pirate Bay or something. But in general, I wouldn't say it's money for nothing, but there is no risk of losing stuff. Whereas you hold 1,000 books in stock, you've got a room, you've got to distribute them, they get lost in the post, they get damaged. People say they didn't get them even when they did. You don't get any of that. It's much simpler.
Yeah, but are you seeing over the years how people's buying habits change? I mean, do you sell as many Kindle editions as you do physical editions now, for instance?
You know, I get the royalty check from the Kindle, and I don't look at actually what they represent in quantity because it might be depressing. I honestly don't look. It is something that ticks away.
Yeah.
And 4 times a year you get a check, and it's really nothing. But it's like I say, you put it there and it will go forever. You haven't got to keep stock. So I would imagine. Well, I don't know actually, Graham. I've never looked at the figures.
There's figures and kind of statistics always interest me. So I said I wanted to talk about your audiobooks as well. Because I followed your Facebook posts and kind of the ups and downs of recorded audiobooks, but how does that process work? How have you found it?
I enjoy it. It was because Sam Anacom had done it, and I sort of picked his brains. A lot of people at the show say, we do an audiobook, and again, my first concern was piracy. You have to pay for 2 weeks in a studio and an engineer. It's a hell of a lot of money to lay out. For a week, you're recording it, and I mean a 7-day week. You're reading your book because you read very slowly. It's not like we're talking now. You really have to slow your pace. And after that week, you have to pay the engineer another week to do all the editing to get it to flow. So it's a very expensive process to get it out there. Again, like an ebook, once it is, that's it. There's nothing more to do. And again, good feedback from it. People really like them. And I must admit, before I recorded the first audiobook, which was probably about 4 years ago now, I thought, well, I need to listen to one. I mean, back in the days as a truck driver, I might get some cassette tapes from the library and listen to them. But I thought, well, I better join Audible and do it. And I thought, well, I need something good. And I got John Cleese's autobiography, So Anyway it's called, which is beautifully read by John Cleese, wonderful story. And I was listening so avidly, not so much what he was saying, but the way he was saying it, the inflections in his voice, the pauses and what have you. And I started to have this like John Cleese train in myself. So, oh my God, I sound like Cleese. And so I would listen. I'd walk to the studio with an audio book on, like Keith Richards' Life or something like that. And I think, oh yeah, I want to sound like this. I want to sound like that. And you get in the studio and you get in front of the microphone, and then I'm just me. It's just miles. And I've sort of found my reading voice now. It's very funny. It's like when you listen, you know this, I'm talking to someone who works in TV, but you listen to Richard Hammond on Top Gear and you listen to the way he talks. You never talk to someone like that, slow, with inflections and back and forth. And if someone did talk to you like that around a campfire, you'd think, what a wanker. You adjust your tone and no one questions it because that's the way you tell a story. slowly.
I had to record a little video for my nephew because it was his birthday and he couldn't have a party. So all the family, all the uncles and stuff, and grandmas and grandfathers were recording a little happy birthday. I got all my kids and my wife to do it as well. And then I showed it to them. And my son, who's almost 19 now, looked at me and went, "You're doing that in your TV voice." And because I was in front of the camera, I just slipped into it without thinking about it. Oh yeah, probably did a little bit. I kind of took it as a compliment. At least I've got a TV voice. So.
Where's my job? Most people pay for this.
Oh yes. I'm a huge fan of audiobooks as well. I listen to them in the car, and if I'm cycling off the tarmac, of course, because it'd be dangerous to listen to those if you were cycling on the roads. But I'm always interested in the creative process. So hearing you say it takes as much time to edit it as it does to record it, which of course makes perfect sense. It's exactly the same doing TV stuff. It takes probably more time, as Tom would attest to edit it and make it look and sound great than it does to record it in the first place. And of course, you don't quite think through that.
And also, I mean, there's so many things to bring in. The clothes that you have mustn't rustle. I don't keep still when I read. I have a pencil in my hand, and I kind of do it like a pendulum. It's slower than this, as I'm doing, so you see it on the camera, and it keeps a rhythm for my reading. And so if you've got a t-shirt or shirt that rustles, it picks up my tummy rumble all the bloody time. And I hear it through the headphones because it's such a sensitive microphone, and you're pressing on it and you're trying to stop it. And the engineer said, "You want to stop for lunch?" It's like, "Yeah, I think I better." And then you have to keep the continuity in your voice. And I'm very aware of this now. When I listen to audiobooks, I can tell where they stopped for the day or they stopped for lunch.
Okay, yeah.
The tone of voice does it. And you know, at the end of a day, you might, especially if you're ending on a good chapter and you're excited and it comes in your voice, and then, you know, 8 o'clock next morning, you're in the studio and you
trying to get the same energy, yeah.
And they will. I listen to the playback to try and get up to that rhythm again.
Oh, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I mean, not something I've had a reason or opportunity to do. Although, I mean, I've recorded voiceover, and not for 7 days on end. Very, very different. But again, just trying to keep. Even just spending a few hours doing it, trying to keep the energy going and sounding upbeat is very difficult. I remember the very, very first time, it was the same on camera. Tom saying to me, particularly on camera, I don't know if it's the same on the audiobooks, but he said, overact, like to the point where it feels uncomfortable, because then it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And if you watch somebody who isn't doing that, you know, you're talking about Hammond, you know, the TV face and the non-TV, and it looks so flat. But when you do it, and I'm kind of used to it now, but when you first did it, it just felt so weird. I guess it's kind of the same when you do your book. You've got to have something that is in your voice, otherwise people will just be listening to something that sounds like that.
You do. There's a bit that Tom recorded when he came and did it when I was doing the last book, and I'm riding in Canada and a moose runs out in front of me, and it sort of builds this crescendo, as you know, and we're riding in the early morning and there's mist on the road and my friends are riding in front of me and we're catching up from a schedule that we've never been on time, and they're like, "Oh my God, there's a moose." And it does, you know, but you can't really try that. And equally, I was watching a YouTube video on a bike review the other day, just someone who happened to own a Ducati ST2 was doing this review. Informative. It was so flat. "Well, I've got the ST2 here, guys, and as you can see, this is a blue one." Oh my God.
This is a blue one. I like that.
So yeah, you got to do it. You got to give it some bollocks.
Yeah, it's very true. Right. So if I want to talk to you about a few other things as well, but if somebody wants to buy the book, where they go to get it? Is it kind of Amazon, I'm presuming? How else?
Yes, yeah. Ideally, you can find them on Amazon. You can't get the new one on Amazon yet because it doesn't exist yet. But you can get them from my website. There's a whole bunch of different deals. There's like a new T-shirt design with a slogan on it and sticker deals. So there's these little combo deals to encourage you to pre-order. But by this stage, I mean, like I say, the release is now imminent. So ideally, I'd like you to go to my website. But if you're a Kindle person, it will be out on Kindle very soon. Or if you just prefer to give your money to the faceless multinational companies, then go to Amazon.
Brilliant. Okay.
So my website is blackfield.co.uk.
Fantastic. All right. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. So, and this is kind of a combination of bringing kind of COVID-19 and the effects of that on the motorbiking and adventure world together with something that people have been asking for in terms of TV entertainment for a while, and that we're hoping we might see it, or some people probably aren't hoping. So a few weeks ago, I can't remember if you were involved. Did you do the Armchair Adventure Festival?
No, I didn't.
No.
I was middle of writing. I was totally off the internet.
So, which I thought was fantastic. So, guys, the sidecar guys who went around the world on a scooter and sidecar, Reese, and I'm going to embarrass myself by forgetting the other chap's name. But they put together this thing. It was meant to be a few hours and ended up being a Friday evening, all day Saturday and Sunday, all online. You know, great speakers. Sam was there. They had Elspeth Beard, Claudio von Planter, Billy Bike Truck, and they had Charlie Borman in the evening. And Charlie, I know, divides opinion. I still think the stuff he did with Ewan, we wouldn't have the adventure motorcycling world we have now if they hadn't done it. Whether you approve of what they did or how they did it, kind of to one side, it brought adventure motorcycling to a new audience, I think, and made it bigger than it probably would have been anyway. And I watched quite a bit of his interview. I've seen lots of kind of Charlie talking, so I know his history and his acting history and all that kind of stuff, and how Long Way Round happened. But I was interested to see, would he talk about Long Way Up?
Right.
And what I thought was quite interesting was almost anybody who has any interest in what him and Ewan have done, followed on Facebook and social media, they took electric Harley Davidsons up through South America and into California. So Billy was interviewing him, and he said, "Charlie, so what's next?" And he's putting on this jacket on the camera. And Charlie said, "What are you doing, Billy?" He went, "Oh, just I'm a bit chilly." And he's put on this leather jacket with Harley Davidson across it. He said, "I'm just getting a bit chilly, just getting a bit chilly." He's doing that to make sure it's on the camera. And Charlie said, "Well, Claudio and I did a little project earlier in the year, and we're just going to see where that goes." So completely, the fact that anybody who's interested knows they've done Long Way Up, at least they've filmed it,
Right.
but not drawn on it, not saying me and Ewan did it, and but I was just that kind of brings to mind a kind of few questions for you, which is, what do you think of doing adventures on electric bikes? Any views on what him and Ewan have done? Was it the right thing to do? Is it just trying to be too with it?
With the electric bikes, you mean?
Yeah, electric Harley Davidsons on an adventure.
I think it needed to be done. I think it's very brave. I think that Harley Davidson are clutching at straws to survive, and I'm sure they outbid everybody else to say, do it on a live wire. I'm sure, I don't know enough about this. I don't know how authentic it was. I've heard that they've had a truck behind them that was there to charge the bikes. If that was the case, it does take a little bit of the adventure out of it. But this is only what I've heard. I don't know any facts. So I think we've covered this a lot on other interviews that I've done about the electric bike thing. And I mean, I was probably the last person to get a digital camera. I'm kind of stuck in my ways, I like this, and I like the feel of the engine. I understand engines. I'm not a good mechanic, but I understand the logic. And to have an electric bike, the thrill. They don't even do it for me. I can't imagine, 11-year-old boy having a picture of a live wire on his bedroom wall, because they don't seem to have a soul. I don't even see it. That poster was on my bedroom wall when I was and that it is. And that's my dream. That was my life that I wanted to live. And the electric bikes to me are just bland. They don't. But then again, things move forward, and I may end up being a complete hypocrite in 3 years. But they don't do it for me right now. I think what Charlie and Ewan did use an electric bike, I think they probably had to, because if they stayed with BMW, if they switched to Triumph, they went to KTM, what they did, as you said right at the beginning, was, if not groundbreaking, because we know people had done it before, it was certainly brought it into public attention. It wasn't specifically motorcyclists. A lot of people you speak to in any walk of life will know about the long way round, because it was a class A Hollywood celebrity. And to then take that direction and turn it into electric bikes, I think was a bold move, and probably a necessary one. It'll be very interesting to see how it turns out when they actually, air it. But I think the thing was, because I saw Facebook stuff, and along the way you'd see, met Charlie and Ewan in I don't know, Costa Rica, in Mexico, in America. You've kind of taken all the thrill out of it now. Everybody knew exactly where you were, where they could find them. It was hard enough, I think, even on the first one, for Ewan to remain incognito. They had all that deal in Kazakhstan where they had a parade and a stadium of people. But now with Facebook, how can you possibly have any element of adventure? Okay, I appreciate you've got to have your backup team if you're making a movie. You might have to have your charging truck if you're on an electric bike. But now it's all over Facebook. You are never going to be anonymous anywhere. And I think that's going to make it very hard to have any authenticity in the spontaneity of travel.
Yeah, I agree. And that was one of the things, I don't know if we mentioned it on Adventure Bike TV, but certainly talking to Tom about it, I think when they did Long Way Round, and actually to a large degree Long Way Down, there was social media, but it wasn't at everybody's fingertips. And so almost everybody that they would pass on those trips would have access, or almost everybody would have access to, unless they're very, very remote, access to some form of social media. So as you said, if Ewan was a famous face 10 or 12 years ago, he's much more famous now. And where can he go where he's not recognised? So everyone knows, pretty much where they've been. and I do wonder, there's been no announcement about where it's going to be shown, or if it's going to be shown. They filmed it and they're just waiting for a deal. Who knows? In my mind, the kind of logical place probably for it to be is on one of the streaming services, Netflix, Amazon, but who knows?
I suppose so. I mean, I thought they would have, because it was completed before Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I guess I underestimated the editing time, because I would have thought, that lockdown period between sort of March and June would have been the ideal time to put it out there.
Yeah.
When everybody's desperate to get out in the outside world and they can see someone else do it. But if it isn't ready, it isn't ready.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So as much as I could just chat to you for hours, but so I've got to try and keep it to vaguely half an hour. So you finish your book, you kind of living this wonderful kind of the life you almost dreamed of in Bulgaria. What's next?
Do you want to know what my wonderful life consisted of before we started this Zoom call? It was the second day running of trying to unblock my sewage pipe. Just taking a shit in the back garden and continuing with rods and a hose pipe to get this blockage out. That's the glamorous life of an author adventure writer.
Would you swap it? I'd
probably swap this job.
Oh.
No, it's all right. It's okay. And there will be a huge element of achievement when it's done. Probably not as much as writing the last chapter of a book. The thing is, when you're unblocking a sewage pipe, the thing you really want to do is have a shower, and you can't because your bloody pipes are all blocked. But yeah, no, I love it. I absolutely, the last 5 years have been close to idyllic. And the other big thing about writing this book was like, it took me back 5 years. And the wide-eyed awe and wonder of being in this country that was under Soviet occupation only 25 years ago. So there's very different, there's the Soviet architecture and the statues and stuff that are around. And horse and carts on the street. It very much is sort of where east meets west. I mean, I'm only 300 miles from the Istanbul, where you cross into Asia. So, we're out there geographically. So it's kind of writing the book, and it took me back to how I felt. And it kind of made me appreciate everything all over again. And I do love it here. I love the scenery, I love the climate, I love the empty spaces, the open road, and it's got loads of pluses. The quality of life, my quality of life here is so much better than it was in the UK. And ultimately, that's what everything's about, quality of life. And now I found that after a 5-year hiatus, I'm able to write again and enjoy it. And as I started off saying, I had to end the book after 100,000 words. So it's very much a part one. And assuming it is received well, because it's, like I say, like the other books, it's still diary format. I don't want to alienate my original readership, but it just sort of deviate a little bit from pure motorcycle adventure. It does bring other aspects in, which will hopefully make it appealing to a wider audience without alienating the motorcyclists, the readers. And if it is received well, and this is the big, like, starting to do the interviews and the publicity now, and I'm getting butterflies thinking, oh shit, I've really exposed myself, what if people don't like it? If they do, there will absolutely be a part two. I wrote it knowing that there would be a part two, but we'll have to see what the feedback is, and only time will tell on that one.
I'm sure it'll be fabulous. I'm sure it'll be fabulous. Graham, as always, it's a pleasure. When you're in the UK next, who knows who's going to be able to travel anywhere?
Actually, next week. I'm coming back next week.
Oh.
I've got to deal with the distribution and the book arrival, but all from the confines of my mother's house, because I've got to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Of course you have, yeah.
So,
Okay, so still, I mean, in my head, I'm almost thinking there's no flights, but of course, I mean, people are still flying around, just not very many people.
Yeah, I mean, there was this whole debate, do I get it printed in Bulgaria? Do I distribute it from Bulgaria? I haven't seen my mum in 8 months. She lives on her own. She's been really cool. She's kept a brave face. We Skype every day. But I want to go back, see my mum, help with the book stuff, do a bit of maintenance around her house, and polish my tail up, because I've got bugger all else to do. I can't leave for 2 weeks.
I can come and sort of wave from the front of the house and say hello.
Yeah. Are you still clapping on a Thursday? Can I join in with that one?
I have a feeling that's stopped, actually. I think. Yeah, I have a feeling it has. Yes, I mean, at least we can get out and ride now, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Although can't go anywhere and stay, so you can't even kind of do a weekend mini adventure to try and keep the adventure fire stoked. But at least we can get out and ride.
That's a start.
It is. Yeah. Right, Graham, I will let you get on with your day. Lovely as always to talk to you.
You too. Thank you for being so gentle. My first Zoom ever.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see you at some point over the next few months and see you for real. Have a couple of beers.
Yeah, nice one. Okay.
Yeah. Cheers, Graham.
Bye.